This episode is brought to you by Visit Mesa. Welcome to Mesa, Arizona, a destination for every season. Experience a destination where adventure, culture, and culinary experiences are limitless. As the gateway to the stunning Sonoran Desert and Tonto National Forest, Mesa invites you to explore its scenic waterways, kayak through winding canyons, or paddleboard along the Salt River. For a one-of-a-kind desert adventure, ride the waves at Revel Surf at Cannon Beach, the country's first surf park of its kind. Downtown Mesa is a vibrant hub, home to the Mesa Art Center, public art, award-winning breweries, and local shops. Food lovers can explore the fresh foodie trail and the diverse flavors of Mesa's Asian district. Sports fans can experience MLB spring training with the Chicago Cubs and Athletics, or visit one of North America's largest youth sports complexes. As the world's first autism-certified city, Mesa is dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity for all visitors. Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Tuesday edition of our show. I'm your host, Joe Grado. I want to thank each and every one of you for kicking off your week with us here to hear our thoughts on everything surrounding A's baseball. Today is Tuesday, January 20th. We got a good show for you. We'll kick off today's show talking about Luis Severino announcing that he will be joining the pitching staff for Team Dominican Republic, representing in this year's upcoming World Baseball Classic. Then we are going to spend the rest of the episode taking a trip around the American League West as these teams currently stand on today, January 20th. We take a look on how the rest of the division stacks up heading into 2026 as compared to the A's, after we discuss some notable additions and subtractions, along with making perhaps a hot take or two along the way. Just about 3 weeks until pitchers and catchers report. Baseball is on its way back quickly. Holy Toledo. Let's go A's.
Sounds correct.
A's Day fans, thank you again for tuning in to our Tuesday edition of our show. As a reminder, check us out on our social media platforms at A's Day Baseball Podcast on Instagram, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at A's Day Baseball. Check out our YouTube channel for video editions of our podcast episodes, as well as interviews with A's players and content creation destination trips, highlighting the A's on the road, as well as hotspots in baseball destination cities, where the A's may travel and where you may travel to see the A's in the future as well. Check out our YouTube channel for so much to come in 2026. And to become an official subscriber of A's Day, check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day. For just $2 a month, you'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirts, A's autographed memorabilia, future A's game tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, let's lead off today's show and talk about Luis Severino announcing that he is going to be representing his native home country, the Dominican Republic, in this year's World Baseball Classic. His manager now, Nelson Cruz for Team Dominican Republic, confirmed that Severino will pitch for the DR in the 2026 tournament. As a reminder, over the 2025 campaign, Severino, he started 29 games, pitched to an 8-11 win-loss record with a 4.54 ERA and 162 and two-thirds innings pitched, walked 50, struck out 124 batters, and pitched to a 1.30 whip. He led the league with 16 hit batters, and his home and away splits throughout this past season were rather dire. We know the story. At home, he pitched on the road, he pitched to a 3.02 ERA, and at home at Sutter Health Park, pitching to a 6.01. I think this is great, to be completely honest, because after coming in, with that one of the bigger contracts in A's franchise history, Severino was tasked to be the ace, to lead by example and create that positive momentum up and down the rotation and set the foundation for this team. That didn't happen consistently, and we didn't even see it come to full fruition until the back end of the 2025 season. So hopefully Severino has made his adjustments to pitching in a very hitter-friendly environment, and perhaps we'll see a little bit closer to the median at home. And if he can maintain his strong performances on the road, then his 2026 is going to look significantly better than 2025 did. Now, I think this is good because with how wrong 2025 went, you got to do something different. And I think this tournament While there are fans of the game that are worried about getting the competitive juices flowing too soon and perhaps leading to some injury over the long term, just not having that normal buildup for a long season as compared to years past, I think for Severino this could be good. He is a veteran of the game, and he is someone that pitches better at a high emotion rate. So I would imagine that he had planned to perhaps participate in the World Baseball Classic and adjusted his off-season training accordingly. So I'm sure that he's going to be more than prepared to sustain the duration of this tournament, as well as his duties being the ace of the A staff heading into this year. And if anything, I'm looking at this as a positive because, to be completely honest, looking at how poorly he pitched at home, I don't think he could get a whole lot worse. And I am expecting bigger things for Severino in 2026, and perhaps I think this can get those competitive juices flowing and set a better foundation for Severino heading into 2026, where the A's are going to have someone firing, rearing, ready to go for his opening day start. I love it, to be completely honest. I think, there are some players that maybe, and I understand that Severino has a little bit of a health issue track record, but he has shown since he has transitioned from his time to the Mets and then with the A's this past season that he has shown a more return of consistency with health. He's had two minor IL stints, but nothing significant in terms of concern about his arm health for the long term. It was more oblique injuries, more body issues that do come up just due to natural wear and tear for how long the baseball season is. So in this case, I love the fact that, one, I think it's good because I think Severino can create some positive momentum for 2026. But more importantly here, I think when anyone gets an opportunity to represent their home country in something that means so much to the country, you got to take it. I mean, that's what's going to matter in the long term, is maintaining your true identity for love of country. And I can always respect that for each and every one of these guys that find their different native country to go represent them in the World Baseball Classic coming up. And I'm excited to talk about it here. We'll do a preview most likely of the World Baseball Classic at the end of February. But we love the idea of so many nations being represented. And it seems like more guys in our game are going to different countries that are going to be represented in the World Baseball Classic. That it's always encouraging that it kind of aligns with our mission here, where we try to do our best to grow the game to new heights from the A's perspective. And then on our Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players podcast, we try to grow the game to new heights across collective all of everything associated with the game of baseball. That we're kind of seeing it on full display at a global stage with more countries being represented and deeper rosters, which makes me very excited as a baseball fan to see how competitive this tournament is going to be, because when it first started, I would say there was a handful of countries that dominated, but now you're seeing the talent pool spread more and more globally. And that's exciting how baseball is really connecting everyone on a global capacity. So very excited to talk about that further at a later episode. But just wanted to mention it today that Luis Severino is going to be representing Team Dominican Republic, and wish him the best of luck. Just, I guess, not against Team US, but against everyone else. Hopefully he does his thing. And like we mentioned, hopefully we could put a pin in this footnote, and that we look back on his time during the World Baseball Classic as the turning point at, hey, he really got a jump start on his 2026 season that is going in a positive direction because of the earlier preparation in his offseason and the competitive juices flowing in the World Baseball Classic. Time will tell. We're certainly looking forward to watching that tournament with some A's representation. All right. So we'll be sure to talk about that more at a later date. Today, we are proud to thank one of our other supporters, the Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena. Stay in the heart of downtown at Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena, ideally located near Old Sacramento Waterfront, Golden One Center, and Downtown Commons, also better known as DOCO. Our full-service Sacramento hotel is just 15 minutes from Sacramento International Airport and within walking distance of the California State Capitol and Safe Credit Union Convention Center. Host meetings, conferences, and social events in our flexible boardrooms and ballrooms, supported by experienced on-site sales and events teams. Enjoy modern amenities, including a rooftop outdoor pool, on-site fitness center, and Cypress Grill restaurant serving breakfast, dinner, and cocktails. Guest rooms and suites feature comfortable workspaces, contemporary amenities, and city views, making them ideal for both short stays and extended visits. Whether you are attending an event, planning a meeting, or exploring Sacramento dining, entertainment, and cultural attractions, our downtown location keeps you close to it all. Downtown access, full-service comfort, easy booking. Stay at our downtown Sacramento hotel. All right, let's discuss the main topic of our episode today and how the A's fare as we begin our traverse around the American League West and get some initial gauges on teams around the division. We'll talk about some notable additions this offseason, some subtractions. We'll give our thoughts on a couple things we like, a couple things we may not like, and maybe a hot take for each team along the way. We'll see as we go. So we'll take a look around the league at each team. Let's start with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They are led by new manager. This will be his first season at the helm, Kurt Suzuki, former Major League catcher. Looking forward to seeing what his influence is on this franchise that just continues to be middling over these extended years now. This past season, they finished with a 72-90 win-loss record, which was good for fifth and last in the American League West. We're going to talk about how they performed offensively. So as a team, they batted .225 for a batting average, which was last in major. These are all going to be major league rankings, by the way. .225 average was last in baseball. They hit 226 home runs, which was the fourth most. 673 runs scored, which was 25th. They struck out 1,627 times, which was the most. And they walked 484 times, which was 22nd, and hit and compiled a 695 OPS, which is 23rd in baseball. On the mound, didn't get a whole lot better. In fact, maybe a little bit worse. They pitched to a 4.89 ERA, which was the third worst in baseball. They struck out 1,280 batters, which was 25th. They walked 620, which was the most, and they pitched to a 1.43 whip, which was the third worst mark in baseball. Some key additions that they did make were Grayson Rodriguez via a trade with the Baltimore Orioles, Alek Manoah on a one-year deal. They acquired Vaughn Grissom via a trade with the Red Sox. They acquired Drew Pomeranz, Jordan Romano, Kirby Yates, Josh Lowe via a trade with the Reds and Rays. Some key subtractions this offseason thus far. Kyle Hendricks retired. Taylor Ward was the piece involved with that trade with the Orioles that saw them return Grayson Rodriguez. And then some current free agents are Luis Rengifo, Yoan Moncada. They lost Kenley Jansen in free agency to the Detroit Tigers, and Tyler Anderson is a current free agent. Their lineup projects as follows, and this is as January 20th, so if there are any additions to this lineup, and obviously depending on how spring goes for these teams, it could change, but this is all according to Fangraphs with these projected lineups and rotations. So for the Angels, this is how they project offensively. They have Zach Neto leading off at shortstop, Nolan Schanuel at first base batting second, followed up by Mike Trout in the 3-hole as the designated hitter. Joe Adell will be batting fourth, Jorge Soler batting fifth, Josh Lowe batting sixth, Logan O'Hoppe behind the dish catching, batting seventh. Vaughn Grissom at second base, batting eighth. Rounded out by either Wade Meckler or Christian Moore. There are 10 guys, it seems like, vying for 9 spots in the starting lineup. As for the projected rotation, they are looking at Yusei Kikuchi, Jose Soriano, Reed Detmers, Grayson Rodriguez, who was acquired via the trade, and Alek Manoah rounding out the starting 5. So 2 things that I like about the Angels, what they've done this offseason, is they did address an area of need initially. So what I've clamored about even on our Bases, Barrel, and Ball Players podcast is that the Angels need to focus on pitching. And that's something that they refuse to have invested in. I think it was either their last draft, or I think I believe it was the 2024 draft, that all their selections throughout all the rounds were pitchers. And I'm glad that they made a steadfast effort to try to develop their pitching at their farm system level. But it seems like with how they've operated at the big league level, they haven't made a consistent effort to bring in some of these higher priced free agent arbs or swing it in a trade to bolster their rotation, bolster their bullpen. It seems like they keep trying to land these trades over an extended time with big splash free agent bats. And bats only gets you so far if you don't have the pitching to complement. I mean, with the Angels this year, having the third worst ERA in baseball isn't going to cut it unless you're offense is slugging at an unbelievable rate, which they did in terms of with power. They hit the fourth most home runs in baseball, but in terms of offensive productivity, they were in the bottom 5 between their average and OPS, ranking quite low in the league. So that's just not a formula for success. And the numbers in this instance can really dictate where the Angels went wrong. So I like this move in terms of this trade. Yes, you're losing 35-plus home runs in Taylor Ward, but Taylor Ward is entering the final year of his contract with the Angels, and with how things have gone with the Angels thus far in terms of team success, and with Ward's value continuing to increase, there's a combination of his value on the open market might exceed what the Angels would be willing to invest, and Ward may be looking to go to a franchise that has more of a concerted effort and a vision to putting a winning product forward. And where Ward is now, I think Baltimore, yes, they had a tough 2025, but they really do have the paces at the big league level and through their organization in terms of throughout their farm system to have a pretty quick turnaround here. So I think there's a lot more exciting times to come in Baltimore, and that's why Ward, you can see Baltimore making that trade where, yes, they only guarantee having him this year, but there is a strong possibility Ward's going to like and enjoy his time there, hitting at Camden Yards, but they have an opportunity to lock up Ward on a long-term deal too as well. So we'll have to monitor that situation. We won't do that here since this is A's Day. But in terms of what the Angels have done, they bring in a guy in Grayson Rodriguez. Yes, he has a ton of health risk and injury track record, but when he is available, he is still in the latter stages of his 20s, or the earlier stages of his 20s, that there is still that high ceiling with his electric stuff that by year's end, he could be pitching like a top-end rotation type arm. So in terms of what the Angels should be doing, I like that move in particular. And the other thing I like is bringing in Kurt Suzuki, a former big league catcher. I think the Angels are finally doing something different. I think they're stepping outside of the box and trying to find a different pathway to success. And Suzuki was someone that was always known as a cerebral, well-respected, long major league veteran that I think is going to have a positive immediate success with his calm demeanor in this Angels clubhouse. They are looking for someone to bring some stability. They have been lacking some stability for quite some time, and I think Suzuki can provide it. Will there be some growing pains in his first year? Absolutely, because he is going to learn along the way. But I think you are going to start to see some consistency here. And this is no knock, because I think the Angels had a great guy in Ron Washington. I'm still not sure why they moved on from him. Ron is now a member of the San Francisco Giants coaching staff. I believe he is working with their infielders, which is a great pickup for them. But nevertheless, I do think the Angels did pivot and get a guy in Suzuki that has the potential to be a good fit here. So we'll see. Now, the things I don't like, that is, we're going to spend a little bit more time here, their lack of starting pitching options and bullpen additions, and their outfield has multiple question marks. So those are our two, that's 3 things. Sorry. But that's just, I'm just going to be completely honest here. Like, yes, they did bring in Alek Manoah on a 1-year deal, Jordan Romano on a 1-year deal. They're making these additions to the club, and a Drew Pomeranz too as well. And they bring in a Kirby Yates too. These are all 1-year contracts. This is what the Angels do. They try to find cost-effective adds to try to give them a boost year to year with no long-term vision in a lot of these moves. And typically they don't work out. And I do know 1-year deals for a lot of prove-it deals, they work out elsewhere. I'm not just saying the higher percentages probably says that it doesn't work out, but there are plenty of instances where it does. It just seems like there's some negative connotation attached to the Angels where it just doesn't flat out work out. And is this the way they're trying to solve their holes on this team? Because did you hear the projected outfield? Jorge Soler is a designated hitter. Joe Adell, center fielder, still hasn't really proven that he can fully put it together in all aspects of the game over a course of 162, in my opinion. Lots of power, and I think he made great strides offensively in 2025, but there's still room for growth and prove it in his game there. And Josh Lowe, we're seeing where we're getting there too as well. He was effective in his time with the Rays, but he is someone that struggles mightily against left-handed pitching. So is he going to be a platoon guy, or is he someone that is going to have to play every day because of their lack of outfield depth and is just going to succeed against right-handed pitching and then just look very overmatched against lefties. Because of how they're projected right now, not a ton of depth there. And the lineup as a whole doesn't, I feel like, have a lot of potential after 6, to be completely honest. So if anything, I think this offense has regressed a little bit with the loss of Ward. I think what they need to do the rest of this offseason is add. There are still 2 frontline free agent starting pitchers out there available at the time of recording, and a Framber Valdez and a Zach Gallen. I think the Angels need to invest their money in one of them. If you do that, I'm not saying the Angels are going to be in the running to win this division, but they can be in the running for at least a little bit of respectability, because if they go into the season with how they're currently constructed, they already were the worst team in the American League West as they performed in 2025. I think it may get a little bit worse, because I think around the league teams are going to perform a little bit better. So we'll have to monitor and see what the Angels do the rest of this offseason. Spring training is approaching rapidly, but that is something that I would highly recommend. If this was talking Angels, I would be saying that I would like to see one frontline starter added and potentially an outfield bat to add some depth, some impact. Do you do an overpay for Cody Bellinger? Maybe. I mean, you've overpaid for guys that were a little past their prime. Where Belly, I still think at least has some good years left in him and can be versatile. He can play any outfield spot. He can play first base. He could be so dynamic for your offense. You do something like that and a frontline starter, all right, Angels, we can talk a little bit more and take you a little bit more serious. So that's kind of what the Angels have been up to. My prediction here, however, I think the Angels are going to continue to conduct business as normal. And with how I think they're going to get off to a tough first half start, my prediction, we're going to do one for each team. Zach Neto gets traded at the deadline this year, and they end up finishing in last place once again. So hopefully, Angels fans, if you're listening, be patient. It's not on us. Look at your ownership group. Hopefully that they have a pivot and have more of an adherence to proper baseball operations moving forward. But with as currently constructed, not a lot of high hopes in Halo's country. All right, next up, we're going to head on down to Texas. We're going to talk about the Houston Astros. They are led by manager Joe Espada. They finished last year 87-75, narrowly missing out on the postseason due to losing out on a tiebreaker. They finished second in the American League West. Offensively, they batted .250 as a team, which was 12th in baseball. They hit 182 home runs, which was 16th. They scored 686 runs, which was 21st. They struck out 1,301 times, which was actually the 7th least amount in baseball. And they walked 471 times, which was the 4th least in baseball as well. And they hit to a 714 OPS, which was right around league average at 15th. On the mound, and this is the foundation of what carried the Astros team in 2025, they pitched to a 3.86 ERA, which was 11th. They struck out 1,504 batters, which was second in baseball. In fact, only one less than the 2025 World Series champion Dodgers, who had 1,505. Just thought that was something of fun note. They walked 508 batters, which was 15th, and pitched to a 1.22 whip, which was 8th. Their main additions this offseason, they signed Tatsuya Imai from Japan on a 3-year deal. They swung Mike Burrows in a 3-team trade with the Rays and Pirates to add to their starting rotation. They landed infielder Nick Allen in a trade with the Braves, and they signed starting pitcher Ryan Weiss on a 1-year deal. So notable subtractions are guys that are currently in free agency: Craig Kimbrell, Brendan Rodgers, Ramon Urias, and Framber Valdez. Some additional subtractions that are officially gone and on to another organization. Mauricio Dubon was in that trade with the Braves for Nick Allen. Dubon is now with Atlanta. Outfielder Jacob Melton was involved in that 3-team trade with the Rays and Pirates. And Victor Caratini signed a free agent deal with the Minnesota Twins. Here is how the Astros lineup projects as currently constructed. So they have, and this is all again according to Fangraphs, Jeremy Pena will be leading off at shortstop, Yordan Alvarez, designated hitter, batting second, Jose Altuve in the 3-hole at second base, batting fourth at third base, Carlos Correa, batting fifth at first, Christian Walker, Jesus Sanchez, the outfielder, batting sixth, Heiner Diaz, the catcher, batting seventh, Zach Cole Jr., the outfielder, batting eighth, and Jake Myers, batting ninth, will round it out in the outfield too as well. On the mound, this is how the Astros, which this was an area of strength in 2025, projects to pitch it with their starting five, with a sixth in the running. Hunter Brown is the projected ace, Christian Javier, Tetsuya Imai, Lance McCullers, Michael Burrows, and Ryan Weiss. All right, so a couple things I like about Houston. First, I love the Tetsuya Imai signing. It was a clear area of need that Houston needed to upgrade. They were lacking starting pitching depth, and there was a lot of concerns following even Brown, because Javier has proven to be a high-quality starting pitcher when healthy, but he has had some health issues here and there and has had some times of ineffectiveness. So you would slot him in as one of the two dependables, but things could go off the rails too. You never know. And then with Lance McCullers, with him, he's effective with that nasty curveball, but his area of concern has been being able to stay healthy over the recency years. And then with Mike Burrows, you never know what you're going to get. And Ryan Weiss is also a wild card. So it was really important that the Astros were out there on the open market looking to land someone who projects to be a frontline type starter, and Tetsuya Imai fit the mold and is going to have every opportunity to slot into that 3 spot in the rotation and prove that he can be a dominant force in Major League Baseball. So I love that move for the Astros. I think it needed to happen, especially without them having intentions on bringing back Framber Valdez for multiple reasons that could be understood. So they needed to replace that production with someone that can come in very similarly, and I think Imai is going to be up for the task. And then the top 3 of the order in the Astros lineup, I think, is going to bang once again. Jeremy Pena had a fine year, and Alvarez and Altuve, 2 of the more mainstays, especially Altuve is really getting up there in age now. Still been productive, and I think with Altuve's return to second base, you're going to see a higher level of comfortability there. And then Yordan Alvarez, he missed a lot of last year due to injury, but I think he's due for a big bounce back. I have him circled in my notes as a potential candidate for American League Comeback Player of the Year, because when he is healthy, I've said it on previous episodes, that he is one of the best left-handed hitters in all of baseball and to ever play this game as well, in my opinion. That's how highly I regard Alvarez in terms of that left-handed swing. So if you have a full year of him, Altuve still doing his thing, and Pena is a solid 1-2-3 punch. That being said, something I don't like about the Astros is their lack of depth in this lineup. That's something that at the core of their dynasty on their run, which saw them win 2 World Series and appear in a couple others, that the lineup was long. And you're kind of seeing that shift in how the Toronto Blue Jays play baseball. Their lineup is tantalizing, it's smothering. It reminds me a lot of the foundations on how the Astros had their initial success back in the start of their run in 2017 and beyond. That they had a lineup that just kept passing the baton to the next guy, not trying to do too much, and then you would have that knockout power punch. That they could attack you in so many different ways and were so versatile as an offense that it left many opponents scratching their heads. And I think with how they're built now, there still is an opportunity for that to happen, but there is a lot of swing and miss at the middle and back end of this lineup too as well. So I just don't know. There is some prove it here. And again, with the Astros track record, I know they just narrowly missed out in the postseason last year, but with how they're currently constructed, I'm just not sold on them as much as I have been in years past. I know their pitching staff is still going to be a tough customer. I know Hunter Brown is going to put up another Cy Young type season. Javier should put up another fine season, but you just never know what you're going to get. And same thing with Imai. That is a big free agent splash signing. But on the other side of things, he's never done it in MLB 2 as well. So there are going to be some growing pains. There are going to be some adjustments that he needs to make to new hitters that he's facing, a new type of hitter. You do think that it should go pretty well, especially with how the Astros have been well known to be a pitching factory in terms of their development. But you just never know. It may take some guys a little bit longer to figure out than others. So there are some question marks with the Astros. Again, I still think they'll be in discussions and talks of the postseason. Come September, they'll still be playing in some meaningful games. I just don't know if it's still going to be a product of the Houston of old. In fact, this is going to lead me to the prediction that I'm going to make for the Astros. I believe that this is going to be the first time the Astros missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons since the 2013-2014 seasons. I believe that they will narrowly miss out again. I believe that this is a team that's going to win around 83 to 85 games. But I just feel like with where this team is at, they're kind of caught in that in-between. They do have some solid pitching, but I just don't think this lineup can support the pitching staff nearly enough as in years past. And I just think it may be due to some guys with some injury concerns. And when I see this projected lineup, nothing against Correa, but having him in the 4 hole at this stage in his career, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the long-term answer to success. So that's our prediction. I feel like Houston wins 83 to 85 game range, and they narrowly miss out on the postseason once again. A very, very far advanced prediction would be that Houston would be back in the dance in 2027. But we'll have to see how it all shakes out because baseball changes year to year. But that's just what we're feeling at the time of recording on today, Tuesday, January 20th. All right, the next team in the division that we are going to discuss, staying in the Lone Star State, talking about the Texas Rangers. They are going to be led by manager Skip Schumacher, who is entering his first season at the helm, taking over for Bruce Bochy. On the 2025 campaign, the Rangers played to an even 81-81 record, which was good for third in the American League West. On the year, they batted .234 as a team, which was 26th in baseball. They hit 175 home runs, which was 18th. They scored 684 runs, which was 22nd. They walked 486 batters, which was 21st. They struck out 1,327 times, which was the 11th least. They hit to a 684 OPS, which was 26th. On the mound, and this is what kept the Rangers' contention heading into September, they had the lowest ERA in baseball at a 3.47. They struck out 1,344 batters, which was 19th. They walked 463 batters, which was the 6th least. And they had the best whip in baseball at a 1.18. Some notable additions to the club in 2026. They landed outfielder Brandon Nimmo via a trade with the Mets. They also signed catcher Danny Jansen to a 2-year deal. They re-signed reliever Chris Martin, and they added Alexis Diaz and Tyler Alexander to their bullpen on 1-year deals too as well. Some notable subtractions, so some current free agents who were on the Rangers club in the 2025 season. Patrick Corbin, Danny Colomé, John Gray, Jonah Heim, Dylan Moore, Josh Sabors, infielder Donovan Solano, and first baseman Rowdy Tellez. And some other subtractions that are confirmed that they are playing for new organizations in 2026. Marcus Semien is on the Mets now due to that trade that was Nimmo for Semien straight up. Outfielder Adolis Garcia signed a 1-year deal to join the Phillies outfield. Merrill Kelly is back on a free agent deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They lost Phil Matone, Hobie Milner, and Jacob Webb, all in free agency to the Cubs. And Sean Armstrong signed a free agent deal to join the Guardians bullpen. And Tyler Mahle signed a 2-year deal to join the San Francisco Giants rotation. This is how the Rangers lineup projects heading into 2026. They have Brandon Nimmo leading off, Wyatt Langford batting second, Corey Seager batting third, Jock Peterson batting fourth, Jake Berger batting fifth, Evan Carter batting sixth, Josh Young batting seventh, Josh Smith batting eighth, Danny Jansen batting ninth. On the mound, which was their area of strength last year, they will be led once again by Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, and Jake Latz. So 2 things I like here. Skip Schumacher. Loved his time at the helm of being the manager of the Miami Marlins. I believe he got them to the postseason once. But I feel like with how that franchise had operated during his time, there was only so far that he could go. And last year, he spent the year as I believe he was the director of baseball operations. So he spent a year really learning the Texas Rangers baseball operations, their philosophies, how they like to conduct business, and really coming up with a helpful winning strategy for long-term success for the Rangers. And at the conclusion of this season, Bruce Bochy announced that he would be stepping away. And at the time of the hiring of Schumacher to the baseball operations department, the understanding was that Schumacher would be in line to be the heir apparent to be the next manager of the Texas Rangers. Fast forward, that has happened. He is entering 2026 in his first year at the Rangers helm. I really liked his philosophies, and having a former ball player in that clubhouse, I think, is always refreshing for guys too as well, because I think the message just gets through a little bit clearer. Schumacher understands the day-to-day, the little things that guys that may not have performed at that level just may not have as deep of an understanding. So he can just relate to guys a little bit deeper. And he got, I think, as much out of those Marlins teams as he could. And I think he's inheriting a better talented team with the Rangers here. Now, I don't know necessarily how it's going to stack out in terms of length in this lineup, because something I don't like is there is a lot of swing and miss in this lineup. And I think when you look at length, yes, there's a lot of productivity, 1 through 8, 9. I do think there's a lot of potential. Like looking through it, like Brandon Nimmo, you have a true leadoff hitter. Love that. Wyatt Langford has proven to be an all-star caliber player. Corey Seager had an all-star campaign second half. Then it gets a little bit concerning, in my opinion, in the 4, 5 hole and 6 guys that needs a little bit proving. You know, Peterson had a tough year. Jake Berger battled some injuries last year. Someone that we got to interview last year for our Bases, Barrels, and Ballplayers podcast. Shout out. Evan Carter definitely had a little bit of a mixed bag last year. And then it kind of Josh Young battled some injuries. So there's a lot of potential here that if it all goes right, this lineup can look really good and look like one of the better lineups in the American League. But there's a lot of question marks, and in my opinion, especially with that mix of Langford, Peterson, Berger, that there is a lot of swing and miss there in the middle of that order. So that's one thing that would concern me. And the other thing, Texas, they pitched it so well last year, but after Leiter, I'm not completely sold on Rocker, and we'll see what Latz has too as well. Those guys are definitely going to be question marks heading into 2026. They're guys that have a high ceiling, and if they are able to put it together consistently, that I do think can make this one of the more feared rotations once again in all of baseball. But if all doesn't go right, then all of a sudden every 2 out of 5 days starts to be a little bit of a flip of the coin. So, you know, I think Texas is going to be that team. I think similar in the Astros boat where they stay in contention, but I don't know how deeply in it they are truly going to be. I don't think they're going to be sellers at the deadline. In fact, I see them as being a team that may potentially try to add a starting pitcher at the deadline, try to make a go for it. I think they'll come up just short as well. Like I said, I think there are some depth issues here. I think the pitching that they return is going to be pretty solid, but I think it's a little bit top-heavy. Moves to improve. I'd love to see them still improve on that middle infield, maybe boost second base a little bit with the loss of Simeon. Would love a starting pitcher, but that's something they could address at the trade deadline, and would love for them to continue to work to add to that bullpen. They did bring back Chris Martin, but you're still not knowing what you're going to get at this stage of his career. I think he'll be entering his age 39 or 40 season. So when he was healthy, he's still rather effective and still a hard thrower, but health will definitely be an issue to monitor for 2026. I think they'll return strong pitching, but to be completely honest, I don't think they're going to be complete sellers. Like I said, I think, in fact, they may make a move here that's going to make them look like a split participant this year. But I'm going to make a hot take here because there were some rumors heading into this offseason that it could happen. And I think if Texas isn't running away, if they're not towards the top of the division for consistency in terms of being towards the top of the division or being towards the top of the wild card chase, I could see them trying to make some tiny moves to have it be a very short turnaround. Where I could see my hot take is that the Rangers are going to move on from Corey Seager, because I think Corey Seager is going to have a hot first half. In fact, he may earn himself a spot on the All-Star team. And I think at this stage of his career that his value may not be any higher, and Texas may get an offer that they can't refuse and may swing back a pitcher in a trade. So don't be surprised if something like that happens, where it can translate to them getting some short-term and long-term pieces in return, getting off Seager's contract and giving Seager an opportunity to go somewhere perhaps that they have a better opportunity to win this year and next year as compared to where I think Texas is at. And finally, the final opponent in the division, we saved the reigning American League West champs for last. That's what we're going to talk about, the Seattle Mariners. They are led by manager Dan Wilson. They finished 90-72, which was good for first in the American League West. They made it all the way to the American League Championship Series before losing to the eventual American League champion Toronto Blue Jays. On the year, they batted .244 as a team, which was 20th in baseball. They clubbed 238 home runs, which was third, scored 766 runs, which was ninth, and they walked 544 batters, which was ninth in baseball as well. Struck out 1,446 times, which was the sixth most, and hit to a 740 OPS, which was 10th. On the mound, they pitched rather well, considering, especially after a slow start. They pitched to a 3.87 ERA on the mound, which was 13th in baseball. They struck out 1,426 batters, which was 7th. They walked 454, which was third least, and they pitched to a 1.22 whip, which was 5th. So notable additions, the big fish was re-signing first baseman Josh Naylor to a 5-year deal. They landed Jose A. Ferrer, a reliever, in a trade with the Washington Nationals. They signed outfielder Rob Refsnyder, who hammers left-handed pitching, to a one-year deal. And they signed catcher Andrew Kisner to a one-year deal as well. Some notable subtractions. Current free agents are catcher Mitch Garver, reliever Luke Jackson, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, and reliever Trent Thornton. And some players that have found new homes. Jorge Polanco signed a free agent deal. He's now with the Mets. They got Ferrer in the trade with the Nationals. They sent catcher Harry Ford. Caleb Ferguson signed a deal with the Reds. And reliever Gregory Santos signed with the San Francisco Giants. As currently constructed, the Mariners project offensively to have Randy Arozarena leading off, Cal Raleigh batting second, Julio Rodriguez batting third, Josh Naylor batting fourth, Dominic Canzone batting fifth, Victor Robles batting sixth, J.P. Crawford batting seventh, Ben Williamson batting eighth, and in the nine-hole, Cole Young. On the mound, they return perhaps the most feared rotation in baseball: Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Bryce Miller. So two things I like: bringing back Naylor. That was something that absolutely needed to happen. He brings the juice day in and day out, and he was a top quality performer in the postseason as well. He performs in all aspects of the game. He even stole 30-plus bags last year, which really snuck up on everyone. Him and Soto did that. But I think what Naylor brings to Seattle, it's such a good fit. That is his hometown team, too, as well. So I think there is that extra added emotion and passion with Naylor being from the Pacific Northwest originally, that I think it just made sense all around, and it was such a good fit. It really lengthened the Mariners lineup and really helped them in that back stretch and really helped them down the stretch getting to the American League Championship Series. I think that was a no-brainer, and that is the deal that they got done in this offseason because he was a top priority. And the other thing I like is this rotation. It is one of the best in baseball aside from the American League West and the American League. I think this pitching staff, will get off to a better start in 2026, and those statistics are going to look even more dominant. But the continuity of these guys continually year in and year out, performing together, feeding off one another, wanting to outdo the other in a positive, competitive way, they help each other improve along the way. And I think this is an area of absolute strength for Seattle that is unique, unlike so many other teams in this league. So the bold move for the Seattle, or bold prediction, I don't think it's going to be super bold. I believe that Seattle is going to repeat as American League West Division champions. To me, they are still the most balanced team in the division. They have such a strong pitching rotation. They have a pretty solid back-end rotation with their bullpen, and their offense is pretty balanced all in all. Especially, this prediction gets confirmed if they re-sign Eugenio Suarez, which is my main priority at this point. I think the effect that Suarez can have for the Mariners team is significantly more. Now, I think he'll provide a boost to almost any lineup he'll go to, but the effect, the synergy that him and Naylor in the middle of that order creates for the Seattle makes them an even more dangerous club than if Suarez signed somewhere else. So don't be surprised if you see Suarez end up maybe like on a Boston. I could see him abusing that Fenway Park monster, but the best fit, in my opinion, is him re-signing with Seattle, and it'll be in Seattle's best interest to re-sign him as well. You only have to probably bring him back on a 3-year deal, so it's not a significant long-term deal. It's more on the amount of AAV it's going to cost. I think he's worth it. This is a perfect fit. Get it done, and then Seattle, you're going to have tons of postseason baseball to look forward to once again. And finally, without further ado, after we take a look at everyone else in the division on some key additions, some key subtractions, we made our bold predictions on how we think they fare in the American League West as currently constructed. As a reminder, this is A's Day, so we are going to talk about our thoughts on what we think the A's are going to provide heading into 2026. So, on the 2025 campaign, as we all know, led by manager Mark Kotsay, they finished 76-86, which was 4th in the American League West. Offensively, they batted .253 as a team, which was 5th in baseball. They clubbed 219 home runs, which was 7th. They scored 733 runs, which was 12th. They walked 502 times, which was 17th. They struck out 1,406 times, which was the 10th most, and hit to a .749 OPS, which was the 8th highest. On the mound, this is where the drop-off happens. They pitched to a 4.70 ERA, which was the fourth worst. They struck out 1,323 batters, which was 20th. They walked 570 batters, which was the third most. And they pitched to a 1.36 whip, which was 25th. Notably, they landed second baseman outfielder Jeff McNeil in a trade with the New York Mets, and they signed reliever Mark Leiter Jr. to the back end of their bullpen on a one-year deal. Some notable subtractions in free agency currently are reliever Jose Leclerc and reliever Scott McGough, and they lost Sean Newcomb to the Chicago White Sox in free agency as they lost J.J. Bleday, who signed a one-year deal with the Cincinnati Reds. As currently constructed, here is how the A's line up offensively. They are projected to have Nick Kurtz lead off, Shea Langoliers batting second, Tyler Soderstrom in the 3-hole, Brent Rooker batting fourth, batting fifth, Jeff McNeil, Jacob Wilson batting sixth, Lawrence Butler in the 7-hole, Max Muncy batting eighth, and Denzel Clark batting ninth. And on the mound, rotationally, they project Luis Severino, Jeffrey Springs, Luis Morales, Jacob Lopez, and Luis Medina. So two things I like with how the A's are currently constructed. I love the dynamic offensive core that is intact. I mean, if you look at this lineup, Nick Kurtz, Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, Jacob Wilson, this core, Lawrence Butler, even Lawrence Butler, Max Muncy, Denzel Clark, these are all guys that have been in the lineup together for significant portions of this past season. These are guys that learned how to win at certain points throughout the year. Yeah, there was that end of May, early June struggle, but this offense at times really learned how to pass the baton to one another to put the pressure on their opponents. Now that next step that they need to take is to show that increased effort in plate discipline, hitting the ball with authority with all fields as a collective, and increasing that on-base percentage and decreasing the strikeout rate. This offense was already a top 10 offense in 2025, and I still believe there is room for growth. There are guys that are just getting started, like a Nick Kurtz, a Jacob Wilson, a Tyler Soderstrom. These are guys that had all-star level seasons last year, and we're just getting started. Shea Langoliers had one of the best seasons a catcher has had in quite some time in A's history, and it went so overlooked because of what Cal Raleigh was doing at such a historic rate with the Mariners. This lineup is ready for the postseason. Like I said, with some tweaks, work your way on base a little bit more, cut down strikes a little bit, but the offensive firepower, the amount of damage that they can put on an opponent as currently constructed, deserves a spot in the postseason. Where they need improvement and more consistency is on the mound. And that's where my area. And another thing before I get to that, something that I loved was that trade for Jeff McNeil. Because heading into the offseason, we knew that the A's wanted to upgrade second or third base. And in this situation, for best business practices, it seemed like that for business, that for everyone involved, that they were going to get the higher value in return at second base. And they get it in Jeff McNeil. And not only do they land a second baseman, but Jeff McNeil can also, in a pinch, he can play third base. He can play every outfield position if you need. So he's a very versatile player that you're bringing to this young core. He's going to bring a ton of veteran experience. He has some postseason experience too as well, that where this team is at, where they're, in my opinion, I think they're knocking on the door of getting there this year. That I think having a veteran like that in the clubhouse to help navigate the pathway to that success and getting to the promised land, what it takes mentally and physically, I think he's going to be such a positive leader in this clubhouse, and aside from what he can offer at the plate and defensively too as well. So that is my favorite move of the offseason for the A's by far. And I know they haven't projected currently as a 5-hole hitter. In my opinion, with how high of a contact rate he has and his way he can work his way on base, and he doesn't strike out nearly a ton as some of these other guys in baseball, he's well below average in a good way, that I think McNeil could end up being a true leadoff hitter. Because I understand why they project Kurtz to be in that spot. He did lead off quite a bit this past season just because of how many walks he can generate. But he also does have a significant K rate, and that's something that Kurtz is going to look to cut down on in this year. And obviously, like I said, he's just getting started. There's going to be a ton of adjustments as he goes along, but there's lots of love for Kurtz in 2026 and for many, many years to come. I would just love to see Kurtz slot down maybe 1 into that 2 hole, maybe even 3. Have Kurtz be in more of those run-producing situations where if he's going to be blasting home runs, blasting doubles to all parts of the field, you would love to have some traffic on base. And I feel like McNeil is someone that does a good job getting on base. And I think if he has a clean bill of health in 2026, you're going to see a much stronger return to form than McNeil than what we saw in 2025. And imagine if you have Kurtz with McNeil and Rooker getting on at a pretty high clip in terms of the on-base percentage department, then Kurtz is going to see even a dramatic increase in his runs batted in total department too as well. We'll see what they decide, and I'm sure they'll shift around with this depending on their matchups, but that's what I love about this lineup too as well. There's so many interchangeable parts that Kurtz leading off can work. McNeil leading off can work. Jacob Wilson leading off can work. There's so many ways that you can play around with this lineup, and there's so much talent that the things that I don't like, that's what we're going to shift to, is their lack of pitching depth at the major league level. And we'll see. That could change because they are inviting guys like Gage Jump from their farm system and Jamie Arnold, who they just drafted this year, with invitations to Major League Camp. Braden Nett is going to get looks in Major League Spring Training. So maybe one of those 3 are going to get a legitimate shot in this rotation or at some capacity at the Major League level and really add something to this 2026 Major League pitching unit. Because as currently constructed, if you look at it, all right, look, there's a lot of question marks here. That's the issue. That's the things. I wish they would have added one more starter like a Ranger Suarez. You can't add a guy like Valdez or Gallen. I don't think Valdez, there's a lot of question marks in terms of how he may mesh with teammates. I don't know. With that dynamic, don't want to mess with a good thing. And then with Gallen, like what he can do, but I think he could run into that similar Severino adjustment. He is a fly ball pitcher, so I don't think that would translate well with him getting 14, 15 home starts. You could see a spike in his ERA and home runs allowed. Gallen is already someone that is susceptible to the home run ball. I don't think that's the best fit. Valdez would be, but there would have to be a long, extended conversation to make sure that he would blend in and mesh in well with what the A's got cooking up here for 2026 because there's so much positive momentum. You don't want any negative outside connotation influence to derail what the A's got going here in 2026 and beyond. So the rotation, it could be good. Like Severino could bounce back. Jeffrey Springs was pretty consistent from start to finish, especially from June on. Once he figured out his first inning troubles, he really ended up being the A's most reliable starter from pole to pole. Luis Morales was absolutely brilliant since the time he got called up. Jacob Lopez, same thing. He had one bad start in Seattle, or else his numbers look significantly better. And Luis Medina missed all last year due to recovery from Tommy John. He's got electric stuff, but there's definitely tons of question marks in terms of his long-term health and if he can be consistent with his command. So there's a lot of question marks with the pitching. And then on the bullpen side of things, that group that really bared down, especially after the departure of Mason Miller, hats off to him at the trade deadline. They were the second best bullpen in baseball, right behind Cleveland for the second half of last year. I feel baseball operations departments feels like if they could have addressed this area of need, they would. And they did. They brought in Mark Leiter Jr., but I do know they wanted to bring some more guys with some closing experience, some more back-end high-leverage situations. Maybe they go out there and land a trade. Maybe there's someone we're not thinking about that's still available in free agency. But with as currently constructed, they don't really have a clear-cut closer on this staff. And I know Hogan Harris is going to be now the inside guy to it and loved what he did. I think he really stepped up and showed in big situations he thrives off it. So there is an air of confidence based on the positive momentum he built off of last year. I think we can finally put to rest. Hogan Harris, you're no longer a starting pitcher. It's not for everyone, but that's okay. You can be a really, really nasty reliever and closer. So go do that. Your stuff upticks. You're a lot of fun to watch with runners on second and third, less than 2 outs and getting out of it. We'll love to see more of that in 2026. And there'll be plenty of candidates, which I think is going to bring about such healthy competition in 2026 for that closer role. On the offensive side, it's going to be who's going to be ending up being the everyday third baseman. And I think with the A's on the pitching side, they're going to figure out who is going to end up being their closer, because I think Mark Leiter Jr. is going to end up being the setup guy handing the ball to the eventual closer. So time will tell. We'll see. Those are the things I don't like. But as you can see, I can still spin it in a positive way because we got some really good, strong feelings with the A's. I think with how the offseason started, we were getting a little bit discouraged, but I think adding Mark Leiter Jr. was a great start, and then what really brought us over the top was adding Jeff McNeil. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think with how he fits in with how this team is currently constructed, it's going to pay off dividends for next year and the next couple of years to come, especially the financial configurations too as well. It's not going to cost a lot for the A's in terms of luxury tax purposes. So I think what they need to do remainder of this offseason, I've been saying it on previous episodes, they can still go out there and get a starting pitcher if they want. Maybe it's via trade, and add to the bullpen. Add one guy. Add one more guy. I would like to see a higher leverage type. Again, I don't know who that is going to be because it is kind of late in the game. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, we're only about 3 weeks away until the start of pitchers and catchers. I do know deals get done throughout spring training and even at the early part, any point throughout the season. But you would kind of like to have an idea of who you're going to war with this year. So you want to kind of get all of this done before spring training starts so you can have that team camaraderie begin and form itself naturally and have everyone on board that's going to be here from the start. So our prediction for the A's that we think is going to be bold, but I think with how their lineup is projected to bang, and I think there's a lot more upside from this rotation than it currently shows. I think there are some concerning question marks, but I do think they could be up for the task, and the ceiling on that rotation looks rather promising, especially after looking around the league. That our prediction is that we believe the A's are going to finish this season in second place in the American League West with 86 wins, and we believe they will narrowly make the playoffs as a wild card for the first time since 2020. And I believe, in addition, as a bonus prediction, since we are talking the A's on A's Day, that we believe that the A's are going to add a starting pitcher at the trade deadline, not this offseason, to aid in their playoff push. We're very excited for what the A's got cooking up. We believe that after having a full season in West Sacramento, now having a good routine, having an understanding of how the ballpark plays, I think the A's are going to be a lot more comfortable and get off to a much better start at home than they did in 2025. And I think with the improvement of home performance, the A's performed rather strong on the road, that if they can maintain that level of performance in a slight uptick, I could see the A's easily adding 8 to 10 wins to their win total, which would end up right at that 86 win total. Just a matter of how the league around looks. And from what I'm seeing from the scope, to me, the American League seems kind of wide open. And with that, I'm very excited with this year of experience that the A's offense had with this young core last year. And I think they really got a better understanding of how to win games. They were 6 games over 500 following the All-Star break. And I think they're going to ride that momentum into 2026, being a little bit more seasoned, passing the baton a little bit better as an offense. And I think we're going to see a little bit more consistency on the mound than we saw last year. Excited. We're getting closer and closer to the sights and sounds of A's baseball in 2026. And we can't wait to be here at A's Day to cover it all. And with that, that brings us to the conclusion of another edition of A's Day. On today's show, we talked about Luis Severino representing his native country, the Dominican Republic, in the upcoming World Baseball Classic this March. And then we took a walk around the American League West, discussing how the A's stacked up against their opponents. We talked about some notable additions, subtractions to the division, made some predictions, and we predicted that we believe the A's are going to win 86 games and get back to the postseason for the first time in 2020. We'll be back behind the mic once again talking A's baseball on Friday's show, where we are going to discuss any transactions that the A's may complete, as well as continuing on with this week's edition of This Player in A's History as we kick it back to the 1960s. That's all I have. And we will also talk about anything that may come up in the A's universe in the news. We'll be sure to address it here on Friday's show. That's all I have for you. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you for spending part of your day listening to our thoughts on A's baseball. We appreciate each and every one of your support, and it is an absolute privilege talking about this great franchise. We'll see you for Friday's show. Have a good week, everyone. Take care. We'll see you all again soon. Holy Toledo. Let's go A's.
Sounds right.